Hello, welcome everybody. It's Mauro Verderosa speaking from PSYND. I am here with Robert Byrne from One Identity, and this is the follow-up webinar after the event that was held in Palexpo on the 24th of April 2018. This is for a webinar for all the people that didn't have the opportunity to join to join in person our presentation. So if Robert, you can change the page. Okay, about PSYND, we are a cybersecurity company based in Geneva. We are the first company in Switzerland that born with the main scope of implementing identity and access management solution, and we not only cover what is about just installation and implementation, but we support our customer in the whole full cycle from the analysis until the architecture, project management, the implementation, maintenance, and training. We are also the founder of the community Swiss Cybersecurity, that is a non-profit association that was founded by us, and we give regularly training and a conference for all the people that like or would like to get closer to the world of cybersecurity. Can you please change the screen? For us, it's because we born like an identity and access management company, but we are fully covered the domain of cybersecurity, from penetration testing to cybersecurity assessment to network and physical and system security. So for us, this is really a mindset what we acquired, and we already work for several years for some of the bigger market. In one of the bigger market industries like telecommunication, pharma, and we're specialized in the financial and the banking sector. Today, finally, we're going to present some of the solutions from our partner, One Identity, that is one of the leader in the domain of identity and access management with a portfolio of solutions that will be presented by Robert. We are collaborating together for the implementation of project in Switzerland, but mainly we are focusing the Swiss Romandie, the French side. Robert, I leave you to the word to introduce, to start the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mauro. So yeah, it's a pleasure to do a presentation with Mauro and give an idea of our portfolio from One Identity and some of the products that we have. So let's start with a little bit of a review of some of the problems that we help customers to address and to solve. I go in my role as a solution architect to see a lot of customers across Europe, and these are some of the items that come around. You can read them, but some patterns that we are seeing that are recurring and we're helping customers address, I would call out, would be, for example, around fragmentation. Fragmentation in their approach to security and in the policies they try to put in place. Some good examples would be this tension that some customers have, or a lot of customers are experiencing between cloud and on-premise deployments, where it's difficult for them to have a unified approach to those two problem spaces from a security point of view. Also, we see there's a tension between, say, fixed users on the home network, and then mobile users, and then there's traditional, I would say, silos like Windows and Unix that continue to cause problems. All these things make it difficult for customers to have, let's say, one approach, a coherent approach to security. Another driver or point that customers are talking to us about a lot is problems around agility and being able to move fast. Business and IT need to kind of move together, but also, of course, now with a lot of mobility use cases, we're seeing customers, their end users expect to have nice interfaces and to be able to move from one device to another without being encumbered by security requirements. And the ongoing backdrop to the whole story is compliance and conformity. What I mean is that, obligations to show audit, to show good faith, to show good practice in the face of compliance requirements, like Sarbanes and GDPR most recently. All these things are important, headaches for customers as they try to have, a coherent approach response to those. So there are problems, and what we try to present and discuss with customers is to say, well, what if we could have an approach like the following, where we start by identifying people in your organization, the people you do business with customers, partners, perhaps people that are working for you on a temporary basis, all the people, and let's represent them as digital identity and bring that into one central place so we can have our handle on it. And we start to have an understanding of these digital identities in terms of the profile they present, a consolidated profile probably from different sources, in terms of what access they have, and that could be very fine-grained access to different systems and applications. An understanding as we discover more about how they obtain the access. Was it granted as an action by an administrator? Was it something that was requested and approved? Was it something we simply discovered as we brought this data in? This information is important. And then finally, to have some notion of why they have the access, to have an understanding about why they have the access. Is it related to a business role, a business function? Is it related to a grade, or is it simply something that we don't really know the answer to why? It's just something that we discovered and we're afraid to remove it. So we will try to take an approach with customers where we make a repository, an identity repository, where we can have this information. We'll then go on to exploit this information across several dimensions. So the first important area that we look at in terms of our approach would be identity governance. So governance for us is about using this enterprise and system information that we've gathered to define policy. And it's policy not just around, conformity and, policies and violation of the segregation of duty rules. That's one kind of policy, but the policy can also be related to actions like provisioning and the creation and the management and user life cycle. So governance for us goes a lot further than just simply, generating lists of reports. Beyond the definition of the policy and the good governance, we would then need to move on to an enforcement of that policy. An identity manager has many solutions in this area around delegating permissions, enforcing those permissions, around managing passwords, and of course around federation, authentication and two-factor authentication. All related to the policies we've already considered. And the other area that we typically is helpful to call attention to specifically is privilege management. So privilege is special because of the risk associated with these accounts, but also it requires particularly a kind of a minimum privilege approach, where like you don't spend your time fully privileged, but you have to have a concept of elevation when it's required. I mean, that's kind of special case. And also the audit requirements around privilege are particularly strong, up to recording sessions. And then the other dimensions, all this must happen across, cloud, hybrid, of course. Most customers in reality are hybrid these days and on-premise. So how can we have an approach like this? Well, with One Identity solution portfolio, actually, we would argue that we're the only vendor in the security space that can provide this level of this approach, this kind of unified approach. And we're not all fortunate enough to have superpowers, but with a little help from One Identity technology, our expertise, and our partners, our consulting and implementation partners, we can help the customer achieve these lofty heights. So that's really an overview of our approach, but also, of course, it aligns exactly parallel with our solution portfolio, as you would expect, around those pillars of governance, access management, privilege management. So what we wanted to do was to give an overview of the products, well, a little flavor of some of the products in this space, by just visiting some typical use cases, just to make it maybe a little bit more real. So let's take a use case, first use case, let's take a case where I've forgotten my password, and password management is, continues to be a pain point for customers. So what we would propose would be to put in place some self-service password capabilities for end users. And these people can then manage the password themselves. They don't depend on the help desk. It could be 2 o'clock in the morning. I might be in a hotel. Help desk has long since gone home. How do I reset my password? So we provide this service, a solution which provides a service, which presents a set of relevant workflows. Here we have mode de passe lié, so it's French version, that's the consistency, we can put it back into English, but it can be in all the different languages. So let's proceed with the forgot my password use case. So here you can see it's challenging me first for a capture. Why? Because it's detected I'm on the internet, and so it wants to make sure that I'm not a bot. It knows that this is a slightly, let's say, riskier environment. So I answer my question, my security question, and then we will integrate with our One Identity Starling two-factor solution to again just have an extra check that this person he's already answered a capture. He's answered his security question. And now, on my phone, I receive a approve or deny authentication request. And then I can come in, I can reset my password, and I get I'm respecting I get some help or hints about the complexity rule. So it's a very simple workflow for end users that can really help them and help the whole business to accelerate their productivity and assure business continuity. So that's a past password management use case. What I wanted to show perhaps would be if I was a user on the home network, and let me log in to a machine that is on the home network, and very quickly, if we start that workflow again, same instance of the product, same workflow, you can see that it's gone straight to the single question, whereby it's just asked me for that one question. So it's not done the capture, it's not done the two-factor. The reason is that this single workflow is an adaptive workflow that has taken into account ambient risk and context, like the fact that I was on the internet or where I'm coming in from or the time of day. And that's very important to take that into account, because consistent with what we said earlier about agility, we need to, let's say, annoy our users the least amount with security. Their job is, they have to get their job done, and that's what we're there to help with. So that's a very nice feature of the product, to be able to do that. Let's consider another use case. A user who has a job as an administrator who requires access to a sensitive Unix machine to perhaps do some maintenance, patching on the operating system or the database, some administration task. We don't want this to have a situation where we're sharing passwords with others' accounts. We don't want the individual users to have their own accounts. That creates a multiplicity of privileged accounts. And we would like the users not to have to manage the password themselves. So it sort of sounds like magic, but thanks to an identity safeguard, we can actually achieve all of those things. So here we start the desktop client for actually it's a web interface. We start the web interface for identity safeguard, and I'll log in using my regular Active Directory account. And because I'm a user who is authorized according to the governance policies we've put in place, because I'm authorized for that, I can request access to the Unix machine. I can parameterize the request with information about service tickets and the amount of time that I would like to have the access for and so on. And I'm presented then with a little interface. I can click on it, and it will connect to the Unix machine by proxy through the safeguard appliance, and will log me on my behalf, open a session, where I can carry out my Unix tasks and so on. So it's a kind of magic. I gain access at a privilege level to a privileged system simply by logging in with my regular account. Why? Because I'm authorized for that. Now, because it's saying, I hope that this request could have gone through an approval process, and in the interests of time, I didn't do that. But all the approvals and so on are there. I'm going to check that back in, which is good practice. And speaking of the good practice and auditing capabilities, let's log in as an administration user, and let's have a look at the audit trail for previous sessions that we have. Because one of the key points around privilege is logging in as an administrator here. One of the key points about privilege is we need to be able to, and again, we're seeing another two-factor authentication because I'm logging into this privileged box, this privileged device as an administrator. So if I begin to rely on technology such as this, then I have the obligation to protect it. So let's look at some of the audit trail from some activities. So we can filter, obviously, on these access to try to help us manage the access. So we can review and see all the access that we're interested in according to the filters. So let's have a look at a particular trace which we've saved in the past. I'm just gonna there. Yeah, and we can run that, and it will pull back all the audit traces that satisfy the filter. You can see there's a few of them. I'm just gonna open this and show you a recording that we made of a previous privilege session that we logged into. So it's going to open up a player. It's important to say that Safeguard, the way it stores the sessions is we can store the session in a recording, but also in a, let's say, raw protocol form. That means that the amount of space that we take up can be a lot less. So you can just sample if we want to play this. And then what you can see as well, which is very important, is we can actually have the command analysis. So we detect which commands have been skipped through the video. So you can detect which commands have been typed. And of course, this could be very important for the forensics in terms of auditing security as we go through and analyze the different systems and so on. Now, this ability to gather all this audit is key in this privilege space. So that's fine. The administration users, again, it should go without saying, that the appliance allows operational staff to have an ongoing monitoring of all the open sessions and to, I would say, brutally terminate, if required, according to alerts, any sessions or checked out passwords that need to be revoked. So all that management is there as standard. So that's just a little flavor of the privileged device. In terms of audit and review, there we were dealing with specifically the privileged case. If we were interested in, I would say, a broader overview of privilege of accounts or risky accounts or access across the enterprise, and this will also give a flavor of our Starling platform, which is our cloud platform. We have a cloud platform. We propose a SaaS solution to do some identity analytics and reporting and dashboarding on access. So let's have a look at this. I'll log into Starling. We'll have a look at the instance I have connected to the demo to the environment that we've just been using. We can have a look at the traces and the analytics that have been made available. Now, Starling actually hosts the two-factor solution as well that we saw in the demo, also in a SaaS kind of mode. Here I'm going to click on the analytics and risk intelligence piece, and what we're going to see is that for the systems that we have connected, we can see there's a breakdown of the distant system. This primarily, in this case, information about some Active Directory domains that are in the environment, also information about access to our active roles, Active Directory management solution, and also the device which we used earlier for the privilege access is also visible here. It's this one. So any privileged accounts, people with access, like the user I used earlier, he will be listed here, and we can then have that sort of single pane of glass kind of idea to see all the high-risk accounts. So we have all the access information, but the product tries to allow us to filter based on the different high-risk accounts. So you can see that clearly like domain administrators and so on. But here's a regular, I would say, 80 account, Patrick Hunter. He's got many, he's considered to be quite a privileged user, quite a lot of risk. Why? Just simply because of all the entitlements that have been assigned to him. Perhaps he's accumulated those over time. All right, and so on. So we have a model where we have a very lightweight agent deployed to the on-premise, and the information is sent up to the SaaS instance where we can do all the analysis and report generation. So again, in the spirit of agility, it can be a very light touch way to start to get that initial feel for what sort of state the environment is in, or to put a handle on those risky situations or risky accounts. All part of proving and demonstrating to auditors as part of our compliance program that the company is making good efforts to secure their IT environment, which is an essential part of showing compliance to any of the important compliance frameworks like GDPR and so on. So, Mauro, that's as much as I was going to demonstrate for that. I think it just gives a flavor. I would like to just quickly go back to a summary slide where I just wanted to point out some of the, I think, one identity points where let's say we're particularly strong, or could be just of interest as a provider. The first thing I think is very important is that we are security experts. We only produce security software. It's very important because that's our focus, and your use cases, as a customer, are our use cases. Vendors that produce other software, like for example databases, or that produce ERP products, their focus and their identity management solutions are often not exactly centered on where customers want to go, but rather on where their other products, flagship products, want to go. So that's an important consideration in looking at the market. The portfolio we have is quite large for a security vendor. We're not a niche vendor. We address governance, access management, privilege across a spectrum of different areas. So building that relationship with us and having that relationship allows us to solve a whole set of problems and so on. He who says I have a large portfolio may be trying to hide the fact that his portfolio of products is weak, the individual products are weak. Clearly not the case with One Identity. We have leading products in identity, Microsoft infrastructure management and privilege management. The solutions are integrated. We saw some of the integration already between 2FA, between multi-factor and some of the products, but the products are integrated. And I would say finally the ecosystem we have around support, our support organization is anybody who works with it. You can have testimonials, very, very good. And the partner network, we put a lot of time and we work closely with our partners, such as Sun, to build up solutions for customers. The It's me that's saying that, but the analysts, if you consider the analysts, Gartner this year, we're in the leader quadrant. We're also, perhaps even more important, you could argue, a leader in their peer review, which you can find on their website, the peer review. We're at the top score on that. And Kupinger, Colby, as analysts, the German analysts, have just also, in this year's report, yet again, made us a leader in that. So there's a lot of, I would say, tangible opinions to support our position in the market. That's all I have, Mauro. Would you like to wrap up?
Yes, so what we finally saw today, thank you for your presentation. We understood as One Identity is one of the leaders on the market for the identity and access management and also other solutions. You are proposing a full stack for the IAM concerning the identity governance, access management, and privilege access management, including two-factor authentication, single sign-on, and password management. We saw how you can reply to several architecture needs, like a solution deployed over on-premise, on the cloud, or with an hybrid solution. You support, also as we see from the slide, training, and you have an extensive partner ecosystem developed. You are very strong in Europe concerning what you are providing. We could also give also specific and target demo if any customer may be interested to go deeper in some of the functionality that were introduced today. That's it from my side. You want to add anything else, Rob?
No, that's great. That's great.
So thank you for the one who attended, and hope to receive a feedback from your side for go more in deep on some of the functionality that we saw today. Thank you.